republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome all of you to our August regular board meeting. Tom, do you want to introduce are there any visitors?
There's a lot of people here, so I won't name by name, but certainly welcome back to some of our staff, administrators, union officers, and we have some families in attendance tonight, primarily to honor their children in just a few minutes. So.
I'd also like to welcome Deb Kelly. She's running for Board of Ed. I've known Deb for a long, long time. Thanks for coming tonight. Okay, any public comment? Any public comment? Okay. Now we are on to recognition.
Great. You're going to hear a more thorough report in just a little bit about the success of our Summer Academy program. A huge part of why it's so successful is the staff and the student volunteers who spend dozens, if not hundreds of hours over the course of a summer working with our youngsters in need of additional time. Mr. Discordia had approached me a couple of weeks ago and said we had many student volunteers, but some went particularly above and beyond what the basic expectations are, and wanted to know if we could honor them in some way, and we said absolutely. That's really what tonight is about. So, Mr. Discordia, want to come forward?
Thanks, Tom. So yeah, as Superintendent Garrett said, our Summer Academy couldn't run with, this year we had 180 kids there from age 3 to 18 with all kinds of challenges. And we had a lot of staff, but we also had over 30 high school volunteers. And as we walked through the school, I just mentioned that I had 4 rock stars out of the 30 that I really wanted to recognize, not just for this year, but also in years past. So I just want to say a couple words about each of them, and we'll get them into a certificate, and just thank you for all your efforts this summer. So the first one is Grace Briggs. Grace is actually in Nantucket right now. So
lucky girl.
Her sister is filming it, I see. So that's good. And Mom DJ is right there. So Grace has worked with our pre-K students for the last 3 summers. I've watched her showcase effortless compassion and patience for our youngest students. She instinctively knows what to do well before any adult needs to tell her, whether it's comforting a student that's having a tantrum or playing tag with a student in the gym. One example that sticks out to me was this summer, the classroom teacher was actually with a student in the room during dismissal, so the rest of the students were on their way out, and a paraprofessional was trying to figure out what band all the kids go on. It was like the second week. So I'm getting my kind of list out to try and figure it out. And here comes Grace through the door. She's got a kid on her hip. She's holding her hands up, and she shouts out the band number of every single kid. And she had 7, 8 in a row, and she was correct. So it was just instinctive, like I said.
Wow. Hire that girl.
Yeah.
She's really a natural teacher, and I just want to thank her personally. So this is for Grace.
You didn't get to go to Nantucket too, huh?
Next up, Jeremy Heineck. Jeremy, coming up. So Jeremy has actually been volunteering with our physical therapist, Joanne Sturgis, for the last 3 years. So let me talk about you first. The last 3 years. And really another invaluable member of our team, Mrs. Sturgis. She does physical therapy pretty much from the time she gets there until the time she leaves. She's servicing all the kids for all their hours. And she goes above and beyond. They do a water day once a year for our kids, which is like one of the favorite days. So he's been assisting pre-K all the way up to high school students to help their mobility. He plays endurance games with them. He's doing all the exercises with them the whole time, so he's in good shape. One of the highlights this summer was watching Jeremy during a volleyball game on Water Day. During the game, he really made sure to go out of his way to set up one of the kids that he had been working with that has a physical ailment. The kid spiked it at one volunteered at Summer Academy for the last 2 years. She is an absolute favorite of the kindergarten students at Summer Academy. You usually can see her sitting on the carpet, coaching the students when they use books, or holding one of their hands as she guides them through the hallway. She is another high school student that never needs to get told what to do. She's always going to where she needs to be well before she needs any adult instruction. She moves towards the kids that need the most support, and she helps them to be successful. I really want to thank her for all her efforts in the last 2 summers. So thank you so much. So this is also Blake's second summer helping at Summer Academy. He's worked in several classrooms, including our extended school year primary classroom, which is for students with special needs in grades K through 2. Our teachers raved about him. They requested him in their rooms. They raved about his ability to connect with all the boys and girls in the class. I typically see Blake walking through the hall and then 6 little ducklings kind of walking behind him, following him all around. He's a quiet student, but I really appreciated how he was gently able to guide some of our more active little guys back on task in a very kind but respectful way. So again, a very natural teacher as well. He's just done an excellent job volunteering, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Discordia.
You're excused if you want to come in. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Enjoy the
Excellent.
remaining days of summer.
It's unbelievable.
Yes. That's nice.
Great kids.
I'm glad we're recognized.
Yes.
Phenomenal.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're on to the consent agenda. Would somebody please like to make a motion?
So moved. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, please, if you don't mind.
All right. That the Waterford Board of Education approves the consent agenda consisting of minutes of the June 22nd, 2017 regular meeting, July 10th, 2017 special meeting, monthly expenditure report for June 2017 and July 2017, and food service monthly report for June 2017.
Thank you, Marcia. Is there a second? Dan? Okay, any more discussion or any questions? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carried unanimously. Okay, now we're down to correspondence.
Just one that I would like to mention, that Jody and I received a very nice letter from Waterford Youth Service Bureau thanking us for our continued support of their Camp Dash program, and just wanted to make sure the board was aware of that.
And also you find at your seat the thank you note from Pat Fedor. Thanks. Okay, now we're Superintendent's Report.
Sure. There's a lot going on right now, as you can well imagine, with school opening for staff on Monday and school opening for our students on Wednesday. We're in excellent shape. Had the opportunity to walk all 5 buildings yesterday with Mr. Miner and Mr. Thurlow and Mr. Mancini to gauge our progress, and we will open. So we're in great shape. Our team has done an unbelievable job hiring staff this summer. As you know, we posted later than normal because of the uncertainty around the budget process, and obviously things are still very uncertain, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But we are 99% hired, ready to go. We meet with a candidate tomorrow for our last certified vacancy. So we are right down to the wire, but you know, we had some vacancies in some shortage areas such as tech ed and math and ESOL, and we've been able to fill those with high caliber candidates. So very pleased at the effort our team has put in. You know, technology continues to be rolled out. You have a convocation agenda in front of you. We'll start at 7:45 with breakfast and 8:15 convening for that. A full slate of professional development on Tuesday. Craig, if you just want to maybe give some highlights of what staff will be participating in on Tuesday.
Pretty much all, most of the staff will have a half day and it was a speaker. So we've gotten some professional development speakers for the elementary. Greg Chen is back again. He will be working with our staff with numeracy. Greg has earned a BA and master's degree in economics from Harvard, and then later earned an MA degree and master's of education from New York University. He has done over 2,500 workshops, written 8 books on how to really enhance numeracy. And so that will be half day with our elementary staff and the other kind of grade level planning. You'll notice that our elementary literacy folks will be receiving some Wilson training, especially which focuses also on dyslexia, to help those interventionists really understand the nuances. And that training is being provided by one of our own presenters, Jeannie Morgan, who's a certified Wilson's trainer. And then the secondary, both Clark Lane and Georgia High School, will be having Mark Brackett come in. Mark is a PhD and director of the Yale Center for the Emotional Intelligences and a professor at the Child Studies Center at Yale. His focus has been on emotional intelligence learning, decision-making, relationship, quality, well-being, performance, and organizational climate. He has developed this acronym called RULER, which is an evidence-based approach to social and emotional learning, and has really it's been adopted by over 100 public schools in the United States and other countries as well. So I do think the staff will have a nice balance between getting new information from outside speakers and then kind of a half day with their departments, respectively.
The PD around dyslexia really comes out of legislation that really is looking for districts to spend more time on that. And certainly that's not the only reason we're doing it. It's obviously very important, but there is an increased expectation that staff be exposed to more PD around dyslexia. But certainly thank Mr. Powers and his staff and our coaches for their work in organizing PD. We have a variety of activities going on this week in preparation for next week. In fact, freshman orientation is going on right now across the street. You may have known the influx of cars. We had 6th grade orientation yesterday at the middle school. And this coming Monday night, I invite you to stop by Great Neck for our first pre-K orientation as we launch our own pre-K program, which is a nice segue into talking about our preschool program. Obviously, staff has been hired, and there was a fair number of staff to hire, obviously, with 2 classroom teachers and then the appropriate amount of support in terms of paraprofessionals. Classroom and curriculum materials are in, rooms are set up, furniture's in place. Both teachers we've hired, I think, have been in nearly every day since they were hired. I don't think that's an exaggeration at all. As I mentioned, orientation, but I know Kathy and certainly Principal at Great Neck, Billy Shea, can share more details about where we're headed with pre-K. So if you wanted to say a few words. That will be right at the head of the hallway
Oh,
of
nice.
where the pre-K
That'll be
is
nice.
located. You can see some pictures here.
Oh.
Oh, nice.
It looks like doll furniture, it's not.
Thank you.
Question, Jody?
Any questions? Lynn?
The 33 students, Billy, are those special ed, or is those special ed and the mentor? So that's the total number. And it's a full day? And those students, the mentors were chosen by lottery?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Certainly you're seeing a very public part of the pre-K program. There was an immense amount of work that went in this spring, obviously. I want to thank Kathy and DJ Camelucci for fielding many phone calls and making many phone calls to families who had expressed interest. So there was a lot of legwork that took place throughout the spring. You've heard a lot from us over the last couple of years about the enhancements we've made to our Summer Academy program, not only by a name change, but really by the increase in the number of students. Mr. Discordia said a moment ago, about 180 students participated this summer. That is up significantly from last year, and I'm sure he's going to share some of that data with you. It's a much larger group than, say, 3 or 4 years ago. Part of that was a new piece we put into place this year where students could go to Summer Academy, which the day ends at Summer Academy around 11:30, which for some parents was a deal breaker because how do you get your child home if you're working full-time and everybody has different family arrangements? We were able to partner with Camp Dash where they reserved some afternoon-only slots for kids at Summer Academy that needed a full-day experience. So parents could elect that, and we were able to provide transportation from Oswegatchie over to Great Neck to make that happen, and there were certainly a good number of families who cited that enhancement as one reason why their child was able to attend. So I'll call on Mr. Discordia to kind of recap the program, and then I'll call on Mrs. Valone to share some special services summer programming updates.
So, as Tom said, the reason why we made these changes a couple of years ago is, and we were able to do it for the same cost as we were running it before. The summer slide is real. Our students who need intervention services, especially in K through 5, they regress. Sometimes it takes us till October, November to get them back to where they were at the end of the school year. So these 5 weeks are critical to do some reading, some writing, and some math. And a lot of times the instruction they need is not just sitting and reading with mom or dad, but actually specific instruction, some of the Wilson, like Craig was talking about, which we've been able to give kids. This year, so we had 181 students attended throughout the pre-K to 12. Last year, we were up to 156, and that was the first year we made the switch to include some of the specials and things like that. The year before that, when I first started, it was 97. So we're from 2 years up from 97 to 180. Camp Dash support was a huge factor for a lot of families. I want to thank Jody and Tom and everybody supporting Danny and everybody for putting this an art and PE class for summer academy students in grades K through 5. Again, that's a good draw. It turns it from a punishment into something they want to go to. This year was the first year we tried a summer math academy for middle school students. This was a voluntary program for kids that need intervention services from the middle school. We did have 12 students sign up. So what we did for that program is a combination of some online programming on each of their levels, and then also there was an overarching project which involved fantasy baseball, where they created spreadsheets and they had their teams and they tracked statistics. They also went outside a couple days and they played wiffle ball, and they went out with clipboards and they tracked their own statistics and graphed them. So it's just kind of a neat way to break up the day and to do math. You know, 2.5 hours seems like a short time, but then it's a long time, and math is not what you're good at, and it's the summertime, so I thought that was a neat way to...
Well, you made it fun, so
Yeah.
that's important.
And relevant.
Yeah.
Our Waterford High School volunteers was 30 this year, up from 22 last year, and 12 two years before. Many of our students, I find, are rising from 8th grade to 9th grade and wanting to get a head start in their hours, so they're really hungry to be over there. Inclusion is a big part of our program now. Every kid that's there for some school year purposes that we ban in, kids with some pretty challenging needs, are all included in the summer academy classes. They all push in from 8:30 to 11. So everyone's together there. They're not separate. They're not isolated. So that's really been a great thing. Just another great summer. A lot of fun for me. I really enjoy it. You know, we have kids with many needs, many challenges that they're born with, that they face, and they just bounce off those hands with big smiles on their faces, ready to attack every single day. So really, it invigorates me, and I really enjoy it. So again, thanks for your support, and have a good summer.
Well, it's a credit to your leadership, Chris. Thank you.
That's right.
Thanks, Chris.
And does anybody on the board have any questions?
I do.
Nim?
I know, I have the questions tonight.
That's
How
what
many
we're here
weeks,
for.
Chris? 5?
5 weeks. We intend to use
4, that's what, okay, so you went 5. And then, so when does it finish? Like
This year was July 10th to August 10th.
oh, okay. And 4 days a week or 5?
It's 4 days a week.
Yeah, okay. Fine, that's good, really good.
Any other questions?
Kathy, do you want to?
Kathy? it's a great idea.
Really good idea.
Any questions or comments? Okay, Kathy, how many students are in the Avery Point program this year? 7? Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, for your
Thank you.
leadership with that this summer. Appreciate it. Just wanted to provide the board with a brief state budget update and potential impacts on us. There is no state budget yet. We are operating under the governor's executive order until a budget is passed. Under the budget, under the governor's executive order, Waterford's ECS allotment would be reduced from the current $321,000 to 0, which I don't been well publicized. The House Democrats have put forth a budget proposal that will be considered the week of September 11th. In that scenario, our ECS allotment, education cost sharing grant, which actually goes to the town to help pay for education, would be a slight increase from $321,000 to $345,000. Under both scenarios, whether it's the executive order or the budget, there are significant reductions to town aid and other non-educational grants and allotments. So that is the latest, and I'll continue to keep you posted, but I did want to share the latest on the state budget and potential impacts on education in Waterford. Just a brief note that the middle school and high school this year will be piloting a new suspension diversion program. And really what that looks like is there are times when we deal with our youngsters for minor infractions that may escalate to the suspension level because the student may choose not to serve lower level consequences, i.e. skipping detentions, not reporting to a teacher maybe during their study hall period, and due to escalation, what might have started off as a minor infraction ends up in a suspension because of choices that student made. With that said, we are going to be piloting this year as an intermediary step for the lower end, more minor infractions, looking at some youngsters spending time with us on either Friday evening or Saturday morning before moving to suspension. I think it, in a way, artificially inflates our suspension numbers, and Mr. Sachs and Mr. Hauser and their teams, are definitely open to this idea. So we'll keep you posted on the success of that pilot this year.
Who would man the Friday evening and Saturday morning?
Teachers, so we'll be looking at teachers, within the buildings to man that time.
And it will be done right at the high school?
It's done right at the respective schools,
yeah.
Right. So we will keep you posted on that, but I did want to let you know that. We continue outreach to magnet families. I know that's been a priority over the last 2 years. We're in the process of doing a direct mailing to them, asking them if there's any way that we can answer any questions they might have, as well as inviting them to this fall's Summer Academy. And principals will be following up with direct phone calls. So just another effort. I might remind you that last year Quaker Hill was named the Connecticut Association of Schools Elementary School of the Year. There's a beautiful banner. I should have taken a picture and had that up there. But on Friday, September 8th, they will be officially awarded, I guess, a plaque. And certainly all of you are invited to that. And
At the school?
At the school. I believe it's 9 a.m. 9 a.m. Friday, September 8th, and Carolyn will certainly follow up with more formal information and RSVPs on that. But we look forward to celebrating Quaker Hill this year. And finally, another Quaker Hill tie-in. We just got word that Quaker Hill art teacher Michelle Messina is going to be featured in an upcoming book published by Teachers College Press about choice-based art education. She spent some time at a summer institute, and part of that was her sharing her ideas with the people that were there, and she's been selected to be a featured teacher in this book. So
that's great.
Just one example of the many accomplishments by our staff. Proud of all of them. Unless there are questions, that concludes the superintendent's report tonight.
Tom, when you hire, when the principals hire and you meet with them, do we get a list of the new hires and the
We do.
positions?
We typically send that during the school year at the end of the month, and during the summer, you'll get that at the end of August.
Because you haven't finished hiring yet?
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay, how did registrations go today?
Yeah, new numbers are certainly reflected on the class size report. The only direct conversation I had with the principal was with Mr. Sachs, and he said it was, I would say, less than normal. Certainly, other representatives are here, but when we don't jump into class size report in new business, we could certainly cover that.
Okay, now we're down to committee and other reports. Anybody have anything
They
to report?
canceled the August retirement commission. so-
Are you so sad?
I know.
Same thing with the IT committee.
They canceled it, yeah.
And then we had the other community use of schools meeting that we're all at.
Happy to provide an update on the
Yeah,
community
do you
use of
wanna?
schools.
Okay.
You might recall that the RTM has formed a subcommittee to look at the funding and other associated issues around community use of schools. That committee has been meeting regularly since June. Mr. Merriman, myself, and Mr. Mancini are on that committee, and certainly our chair has attended those regularly.
I'm going to see what's going on.
Keep tabs. Agenda items, have included, is the formula an accurate representation of the true costs? Mr. Mancini did a thorough analysis of that, and it was within several $1,000s. You might recall that the formula allows for a $340,000 budget transfer. There's been much discussion around keeping the formula versus appropriating a sum of money that would be in the overall Board of Ed budget moving forward. And that was really what the last meeting was spent discussing. Right now, there's a formula. That money is transferred over as an accounting mechanism. The discussion is really around if we can come to what the true cost is, and again, Joe has done that analysis. Do we make that a one-time appropriation to the Board of Ed budget and call it a day? There's going to be a draft MOU that would reflect any changes in how community use of schools is handled and any associated changes that would affect board policy. One of the things that came up was that if there is a decision to put it in our budget and then they are just moving forward, that there be a commitment from the board that barring some severe adverse economic shift, that we would commit to keeping the schools open for community use. That there wouldn't be, there was no insinuation that this is the case, but there wouldn't be the yearly threat, if you don't do X, we're closing the schools. So those are the discussions thus far, and certainly any action would require board approval.
How close is Joe's analysis to the amount allocation that we get?
His analysis was a couple of $1,000s higher than.
But that's all, just a couple of thousand more?
Correct. When you're talking
Costs are
about
pretty aligned.
300, we looked at things such as staffing, electricity, lights, set points of heating and cooling.
Wow.
All of that
It was thorough.
really did a deep dive. So we'll certainly keep you updated, but
So the formula's pretty accurate then?
the formula's pretty accurate.
From 1980 something.
88, I think
Yeah.
it goes
Must
back
have been a
to.
mathematician or something. that
Dr.
did that
Katnack.
before.
Somebody put in
Dr.
some
Katnick,
time.
who's an engineer, so.
That's all I had.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Okay, any other committee reports? Okay, we didn't have a Youth Service Bureau committee meeting, but Danny's been keeping me on top of Camp Dash, and Camp Dash was a huge success again this year. And I'm happy that the children from Summer Academy were able to go, too, for half day. And I hope they'll be able to do it again next year. It was kind of sad they had a long waiting list for a lot of the weeks, which was too bad, but, hopefully they'll, it'll work out next year. But I'd like to thank, from the Youth Service Bureau, I'd like to thank the Board of Ed for letting Camp Dash use Great Neck School, and Billy, too. And Billy was there every day getting ready. And welcome tonight. I forgot to recognize you tonight, but welcome to our meeting, and welcome to our town. I know sometimes the kids can get kind of loud, but they had a great time, especially when it's a rainy day. But they had a great time, and the parents really appreciate it, too. Okay, now we are under new business. Strategic plan overview.
Sure. This is an informational item tonight. You've received a full copy of the plan in your board packet, so I am not going to go through every page.
Oh, why not?
Certainly, if you want me to, I'm happy to do that. And
I'm only
certainly won't answer any questions, but I did want to highlight a few key aspects of the plan tonight, not only for the board, but certainly the public who are here, and then will watch this on TV. So again, this is a cursory overview. There's certainly several people in this room who served on this committee. This truly was a 14, 15-month process with wide representation from not only the Board of Ed and administration, certainly staff. There were parent and community members on the committee, and you know, it was a pretty big commitment for people to be there. So the folks that volunteered to be on this really put in a tremendous amount of time. Throughout the process, 2 stakeholder surveys were given, one to district staff, one to the community. Those 2 surveys totaled 430 responses, which that's a lot of input and was definitely valued by the committee. Throughout the process, ad hoc focus groups were held with a variety of stakeholders, and really the meat and the bones of what was the work that was done reflects a revised mission statement, revised belief statements that will really guide our work and our decisions, the academic, social, and civic skills, those things that we hope every 12th grader leaves with by the time of their education here concludes, were revised, and then ultimately an action plan centered around 5 goals was developed. And that's really what I want to take you through, again, in a brief way, and then happy to answer any questions. You might recall when Mr. Costa, who facilitated this process, presented to you in the spring of 2016. He talked about really a very tight process around what are those principles of planning we want to commit to. We're going to gather data, we're going to analyze that data, we're going to set our focuses, and we're going to develop a plan with action steps around that. The 5 commitments that we made were centered around, obviously, student learning, teaching and instruction, how we assess that learning and teaching, how do we make sure all the way from board goals down to teacher goals in the classroom align, and there's coherence, and then any local factors that affect what we wanted to develop. And the 22 members of the committee were split into one of these 5 groups and jigsawed and gathered data. And again, I mentioned the 5 phases of the process. Deep data dive from looking at, I'll say, hundreds of pages of district documents, interviews with staff, data, again, anything that you could possibly imagine was gathered. The revised mission statement is reflected on the screen and obviously in the document. I think it reflects the current state of the world in education. The last time the mission statement had been revised, I think, was around '01. I think succeed in an ever-changing world. What are those transferable skills that we want our students to have, that whatever the world conditions are, that they remain successful? In support of that mission statement, the district, prior to revision, had around 10 to 12 belief statements, and we tried to succinctly condense those without losing the meaning, and we looked at what's in there that maybe isn't relevant anymore, what's missing that needs to be relevant. You can see keywords around collaboration, and that it's a partnership, safety, integrity, and respect, social emotional needs, which has been a long-standing priority of this board and the district, curiosity, creativity, continuous improvement, and evidence and information need to guide our decisions. And again, I think real values around how we move forward as a district. I mentioned the academic, social, and civic skills. What are those baseline skills that we want every student to leave with? Certainly we do much more. We're not limited to these, but what are those key pieces that we want every student to leave with? This is a key look for when NEASC will do their accreditation visit for the high school in 2020. I think we've been pushed out to now. And it's important that we had these defined as a district prior to the next accreditation visit as well. Again, I think you're seeing a 21st century learner and world in this around communication, synthesizing, applying information, critical and creative thinking, all the way down to ensuring one's own safety and the safety of the people around them. Certainly interrupt at any time with questions or comments. After all of that was done, we had to come to some consensus. We had somewhere around 35 to 40 areas that we could have tackled, and what we needed to do was to have 22 people come to some consensus around what were the 5 or 6 most high leverage things that we as a school district wanted to tackle first over the next 5 years. Really boiled down into communication and alignment of our systems, the emphasis of higher order thinking skills, how we use and look at assessments, policy and alignment. Do our policies as a district reflect the classrooms that we want for our students? And again, social and emotional learning. Again, I'm not going to take you through every page, but all 5 goals have the following. Each has a goal statement. Each, with the exception of higher order thinking skills, may have subcomponents. There's a continuum of progress. So one of the things that Mr. Costa emphasized with the team is that as a district, you have to know where you are. Are you making progress? Are you stagnant? So we developed a continuum of progress from present state, beginning, progressing, and accomplishing, with the hope at the end of 5 years, every indicator would indicate that we're at the accomplishing level. And each of the 5 goals has a separate action plan that has defined action steps, outcomes, who's going to be the primary responsible agent for that work, and when that's going to be done, i.e. what school year. You might have noticed that the school year furthest out ends at 3 years. That is intentional because we need to constantly revisit this on a yearly basis and say, we need to add this needs to be pushed out a year. So to define that we're going to do something 5 years from now was not recommended. So we really looked at action steps for 3 years, knowing that we're going to look at this on a yearly basis. When you look at the 5 goals, I mentioned communication and alignment. It's really around committing to a clearly communicated and purposeful vision, shaped by our mission and our defined prioritized goals. It's really saying whenever we make a decision, or we're going to look at an initiative in the district, or we're going to set a goal, that we say, how does this tie into what our core work is? And if it doesn't, should we be doing it? And if it doesn't, how can it tie into our mission? Subcomponents, again, I'm not going to read these verbatim, but it's really about making sure every person in our district is familiar with our mission and our vision and our school goals and our strategic plan, and that all the way to the classroom level, when principals sit down with their teachers in the fall, and assistant principals obviously, and other supervisors, that we say, how does this goal that you want to focus on this year tie in to where we're headed as a district? The research shows that if you stop any person in an organization or a school district and you say, what's the mission? What are your core values? They should be able to tell you. And that's really vital to those things being meaningful rather than a page in a document or a poster on the wall. And I think the last piece around this is engaging parents in that discussion as well. I mentioned the continuum of progress, so when we talk about the first component, a clear connection between the district's mission and vision, this would be an example of the present state, that we do have a mission and vision now, but it's not necessarily widely, strategically, nor purposely communicated. At the end of 5 years, we would hope that we're regularly communicating that, and that any person in our district should be able to say, oh yeah, our mission is X, our beliefs are this. So that's just one sample continuum of progress, and that exists for every component and goal in the plan. When we look at higher order thinking skills, we know we're teaching kids higher order thinking skills from now pre-K to 8. But do we have a unified sense at what those most important higher order thinking skills are? At what level are we going to focus more on one than the other? So creating a unified focus around higher order thinking skills is really what Goal 2 is about. I'd like to point out, I want to thank Caroline and Bert, our graphics and arts person, for their
Beautiful.
tremendous...
Yeah, it's great.
It's really beautifully done.
Exactly. Really, I thank Caroline for her hard work around this and really typing the plan up and the design elements of it. Goal 3 around assessment, really, what assessments are we giving? How are we using them? How are we using the data from them? Are we giving the right ones? What are best practices? All of those questions will be answered through our work around Goal 3 and assessments. Again, subcomponents of that, defining a framework of assessment for student learning, training our staff around the use of rubrics, how are we utilizing data regularly and appropriately to enhance our instructional practice. We began some of that work last year with our refinement of our professional learning community meetings on Thursdays. And again, making sure there's a tighter alignment between the goals we have as a district and the evaluation processes. This is one that will definitely impact the board's work in a very direct way. That do our policies, processes, and regulations support the classroom that we want for our children? Not that there would be anything in there intentionally to block that from happening. And then another key piece of that is what's happening in the classroom reflective of that policy. So really looking at that. You'll notice in the action plan that is pushed out a couple of years because we really need to tie down some of the other goal work to make sure that we can clearly articulate through policy what our work is. Goal 5 around social emotional learning. Again, this is not a stretch by any means. This has been a long-standing board goal. We're going to continue to support the needs of students if they're not socially, emotionally, mentally ready to learn. It's awfully tough to push the academic pieces of what we need to do. And again, more subcomponents around that, around making sure that we're articulating all that we offer students, not only in the schools, but what resources are available to families outside of the district that maybe we don't provide. Implementing a comprehensive, I might add now, a pre-K to 12 counseling curriculum, and making sure that our schools are environments where students can learn. And every student goal is to say that every student can name an adult who they know has a vested interest in their well-being. That's always going to be our goal. Again, I mentioned timelines and action steps. This is just what's on tap for this coming school year. there are, as a lot of, the reaction might be, wow, there's 8 boxes there. There's a lot of work to be done within each one of these boxes. Even just the identification of a district PLC structure, some sort of district-wide district improvement team, district PLC team, whatever we decide to call it, a body of people, representatives from every school to say, taking stock of how are we doing as a district, what are our metrics of success, are we meeting those metrics of success, and if we're not, how do we get better? It's just one example, but this will really be our work for 17-18, and again, the plan in front of you articulates the out years of 18-19 and 19-20. So I know that was a cursory overview, but hopefully provided you with enough background. Certainly, either myself or other members of the committee who serve are happy to answer questions.
Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Yeah, could we maybe get like a quarterly update on some of these action steps as we're going through, just to see how it's working out? And how,
Absolutely.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, just to know if something's got to be tweaked or headed in the right direction.
I would also like to recommend that the board use this document when we make our board goals this year.
Yep.
You know, some, certainly we need to be kept aware of, so that might be one of our goals. But there's some other actions we can actually take that align to the strategic plan.
Absolutely. I think that's a great recommendation, Mim, and certainly the board's goals should not be limited to this, but there should be a nexus, and that's the whole idea of
Well, they should be
alignment.
they should be convergent, yeah? And the other thing, are you going to roll this out with the teachers during convocation time?
Correct, absolutely, yeah. So this will be a big piece of convocation on Monday, very similar overview, and then schools will do a deeper dive with their faculty, because I think keeping people's attention more than what I just did with you at convocation would be difficult. Try to be humorous and motivating and inspiring, but more than 15 or 20 minutes of this, I think, on opening day would be taxing.
Right.
But definitely, I think, yeah, I mean, that's an integral part of the plan that it be rolled out at convocation, so.
I have to say, it's a weighty document that very often is set aside, but I think the people on the committee really took it very seriously and really put some heartfelt language in there that, and they tweaked it and double tweaked it and triple tweaked it until it was exactly the way that they thought it should be. It wasn't just a quick, let's get this done and out of here kind of thing. People took it very seriously, and I think the document speaks for itself, that it is,
It's wonderful.
it is quite good, but it is kind of, oh my God, do we have to sit through this kind of thing? But I think if you take it a little at a time, there's some really great stuff in there.
I think the key in terms of rolling this out to staff will be how is it relevant to what they do every day in the classroom. So what does this mean in terms of me teaching the student in front of me on a daily basis? So if we can't translate that, then our work is for naught. So we spent time at our summer administrators retreat a couple of weeks ago talking about the plan, how we make that relevant. So those will all be key pieces moving forward.
We had some great teachers on the committee, too,
We
that I
did.
think
There's
will
a
help
list
us
of
roll it
staff,
out, right?
Some of those folks. We
Very
have
thoughtful.
board representation, obviously, with Jody, Marcia, and Craig. So appreciate everybody's hard work, but this will be on tap for Monday.
Okay. Now we're down to review and discussion of class size.
So, to table tonight, you have class size updates as of today. First page of the elementary schools, you'll see, our elementary schools run from about 341 to 362. Even with the addition of preschool right now.
Yeah, it's still a small school, yeah.
The average class size range at the the elementary level runs from 14 to 23. We made a decision in early August to add the additional kindergarten class at Asadachi, with the primary objective to make sure that the earliest grades, that the smallest class sizes practicable.
When he says added a teacher, that was within the budget, the board said. That was not, that was not an additional staff member.
You know, right now, there are no urgent class size hotspots. There's maybe relative ones, but that would be the average class size for the elementary, all three schools is 19, so it's not bad. For the secondary, on the reverse side, really just gave you the 4 cores, which would be equivalent to what we gave you with the elementary. And so you may remember that we reduced 2 sections of 6th grade last year, and even so, Clark Lane's numbers range from 20 to 22, so really nested well. Clark Lane's total is 585, and taking the average of all of the courses in each of the departments at the high school, they're all really around 18. We know that because the high school offers an array of classes, from honors to AP to standard and advanced, that you know, when you do an overall average, we would expect a slightly lower class size number, because some class sizes are up to the 24 mark, and others maybe down to the 14 mark.
What is our lowest class size at the high school?
So when I answer that, I'm going to say the lowest class size that's not a 6th class, because as you remember, the 6th class is the middle of the duty, which is artificially depressed. So with that full disclosure, for the English department, the range is from 15 to 24. The history department is from 13.3, so 13 to 22. The math department is 10.8 to 24. You would say 10.8 is low, but we purposely are doing algebra level 1 standard, very small, to try to give those requisite skills to those students. And for science, you're looking at classes of 12 to 24, 12 being some ECT marine science classes, and 24 being your integrated science honors.
And at Clark Lane, do you have the smallest and largest for those also?
You, Marcia.
Oh, you are on the ball, Frank. Read my mind, right?
So give you the content. So from the Unified Arts, the class range would be, Unified Arts would be the various...
We're talking 6th grade, 7th
Specials.
grade?
Yeah, Unified Arts. So 6th grade Unified Arts would be Art and Tech Ed. They're at 19. 7th grade Unified Arts is Health, Finance, Multimedia, Art and Culinary. Those range from 14 to 20, with art being on the lower end and culinary being on the higher end. 8th grade Unified Arts would be Wellness, Culinary, 8th grade Culinary, Advanced Culinary, Art, Ceramic, Art Painting, Art Drawing, and 3D Art Creation, with the class size range of 16 to 23. And then everyone takes PE, average class size range 14. And then there is a unified PE with 14 students, but that's a combination of regular and special ed, so we want to keep those numbers lower. For the band, chorus, and orchestra, we're talking a little bit higher, 37 to 15, meaning orchestra being the lowest, with band being the highest. The world languages range from about 15 to 17. And then, in addition, you know, there's a myriad of electives, but that's like the high school, which is a newer division.
Okay, so we don't have any MD10.
We do not.
Okay, thank you.
Overall, we're in good good shape heading into the school year. We don't expect any large influxes prior to Wednesday.
Good.
So,
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Okay, any, Greg?
Grade 1, grade 1, if we were inclined to add another class to this grade, how would we go about it in purpose function? Do we have some flexibility there as well? We're going to spend a lot of money with it. Looks to me, there are objectives for after that, the grade 1 is the important grade, obviously. Into the 20s, if you added a class to each one of those, originally it was about somewhere around 15, maybe around 15. I'd like to see that. I don't know how much that board is.
so I can provide a little context from a financial perspective. Every FTE, which is full-time equivalent, which equates to a teacher, that's been budgeted for is employed in our current class size. So we're not sitting on any positions that haven't been
That you
filled.
didn't utilize.
Correct. With that said, I know it's August, but we are facing some significant financial challenges in this budget, mainly in the area of magnet school special ed costs to the tune of about $200,000 higher than budgeted. So I understand the board's desire to reduce class sizes at the lower grades higher. I don't, given higher than projected costs in special ed for magnet and charter students to the tune of several $100,000, that's not been budgeted at this point, or is not budgeted, I think presents a challenging economic situation heading into this school year.
Did that cost go up because of the number of students that?
Both, obviously the number of students and then final
actual
costs
cost.
coming in from the providers. But, certainly myself and the team work for you, and if that was the board's desire, we will, but something would have to go. There would have to be a cut somewhere else to make that happen. What that is, right now, I couldn't tell you that, given the whole, the projected hole we're in due to the magnet special ed costs. But we're not sitting on any FTEs right now.
Given that, Greg, I won't jump into the boat with you.
I can tell you that, we're employing due to, student needs, we're employing 3 more paras in this budget, 3 more paras than what's been budgeted for, so that's another factor beyond just the magnet special ed costs in our 5 public schools. Due to student needs and IEPs, we're employing 3 more paras. Principals are looking at those para assignments to prioritize them to mitigate some of these class sizes. So where we place those youngsters that have additional adult support is well thought out. So that's what I'd add that as well.
So we just recently, because when you gave us the original one, right next first grade was at 59, it's now 64?
Correct. This is as of today.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So we had new student registration
Okay.
and, today,
Uh-huh.
which is why we couldn't give you any of the more
Right.
numbers, more accurate when the board packet went out.
Right.
While it maybe wasn't as high as it has in past years, I will attribute that to the success in our advocating for parents to register early, and also the additional support by having anyone over the summer being able to be registered at Oswegatchie, no matter which school they attended, because there was a principal there and a
Yeah, because originally, what we had in our packet looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, 59, right.
The 19s and 20s, yeah, not bad, but now they're 21. I understand where you're coming from, Greg. That's the way we felt last year, too, especially with those kindergarten being high.
Yeah.
And this summer, we did add
Another section of kindergarten.
a kindergarten section at Great Neck and a kindergarten section at Oswegatchie.
Yeah.
Would it be too much of a burden for the administration to kind of do it in those times? So if you stipulate on that, what would be that? Because, you know, unless we know what we can set, I think we really make a decision whether or not worth it.
Yeah. Plus, following up with Greg's question, are we sure we have all the kids coming in that we're gonna? I mean, do you anticipate any more?
Usually the first week of school, you get kids,
Yeah.
don't you?
You know, we did a big springtime push for registration. We opened up a registration window in the spring. Certainly, anybody that walks in during the summer can register their
Okay.
child here at central office, and registration was this week as late as today. I don't expect big shifts in these numbers. So if the board's purview is that we put together what would a plan look like, we can certainly
I think we should
do that.
probably have that anyway, if we're facing some increased costs for special ed at the magnet school and some other things. We're probably, and if we don't get the ECS funding, we're going to need to probably have a list of stuff that we need to let go as we progress through this budget year,
Even if it doesn't increase another.
even if it's not used for classroom.
Well, yeah, you've got whatever's going on with the state, and
Yeah.
then you got Millstone to be concerned about too.
Yeah.
What impact that's going to have.
I have a separate question. We were worried about losing kids to St. Clair's and do we have an idea? Did we lose less this year than?
Yeah, it's a
Than in the
little,
past?
we've received some preliminary reports from magnet schools, i.e. The Learn magnet system. We haven't received anything from New London yet. It's a little bit early. We won't really know officially until October 1. For example, the Learn list they sent included 15 youngsters that we've already enrolled, so the lists don't match. So to really pin a number on it, I will, so we'll have a better idea the closer to October 1.
The costs that went up though for special ed at the magnet schools, which magnet schools are they? The ones that we send, like the Dual Language Academy and?
This would be
Like
any of the
that?
Learn magnets and any of the New London magnets.
And that went up $200,000.
The combination of rates and number of students receiving services.
They didn't let you know ahead of time they were going to do this?
To give you
Ballpark.
preliminary, you have to remember, we're building our budget in December and January,
Right,
so we're working
right.
off preliminary estimates that they give us. So over the course of 10 months, 9-10 months, numbers do change. Numbers of students and final rates. Final rates for Learn came in today for the Friendship School.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
That's
Yeah.
right.
right.
That's
I mean,
true.
the magnet system's in
They're probably cut
greater
back more.
flux
'cause they're-
than we are. So, yeah, it's
Yeah.
not about I'm not blaming New London and Learn, but you know, rates for the Friendship School special ed costs just came in today. I mean, we built our budget in January, so everybody, given the fiscal climate, is it's a challenge.
It's irresponsible of our state government.
We will pull together our team and put some thoughts together for the board
That would help.
in
thank you.
preparation for our next meeting.
Okay, any other questions or comments about that? Okay, now we are down to the second reading and possible adoption of policies. Craig, do you want to take over, please?
So, at our last meeting, we had a question about the social media policy. In your packet, there was some answers to that. So, I'd be happy to address any additional questions on it, but it is a second reading.
Any questions or comments? Okay, would someone like to make the motion? Someone like to make the motion that the Waterford Board of Education approves and adopts policy 4118.236 and 4218.236, social media and personal online account, as presented and was amended.
So moved.
Ann, is there a second? Marcia? Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carried.
The next one is the second reading policy 5113 around student attendance, truancy, and chronic absences. The genesis for the change, as you will recall from the last meeting, was really codifying the practice that has been at Westford High School into policy. Long-standing practice.
Okay. Someone like to make that motion that we adopt, we approve it?
I'll move that the Waterford Board of Education approves and adopts policy 5113, student attendance and truancy, as presented with the amendments.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Marcia? Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The motion carried unanimously.
And so now really the last four are kind of linked together. The first one we had in the administration section, policy 2231, which talked about policies and regulations and bylaws. And with when we did a review, really, when we talk about policies, bylaws, and regulations, they probably should be in the 9,000 series. And when we reviewed this with legal counsel, they basically recommended breaking this one policy into 3 different bylaws, as you can see. So if there are no questions on the proposal for deletion of that, I'll just go under the 3 bylaws, which would be new bylaw 9310, which is bylaw of the board to form and adopt and amend or delete its own bylaws. And then bylaw 9311, which is really a title change to form, adopt, amend, delete the board's policies. And then bylaw 9312, which would be to form, adopt, amend, delete any administrative regulations. So I'd be happy to answer any questions with respect to the 3 bylaws. At the next meeting, once those are adopted, we could delete the other policies so that there's no duplicity in our policy.
Okay. Any questions or comments about these 3? Or the deletion one?
I think
No.
upon hindsight, we could kind of hold off on the deletion until we formally adopt those bylaws.
Yeah.
So I know maybe you contemplated something differently, because technically we could delete in one motion, but I think it just makes sense.
That way we're not deleting a policy without having a
Not having
replacement.
something to replace it,
I
right?
thought we also, as a board, said we didn't always have to go to a second reading. Would this be an appropriate time
So,
not to have a second reading, or do we have to on this?
We really composed the notion of the fast track first reading then with respect to statutory changes.
Oh,
This
okay,
does
this is not.
really qualify.
Okay.
So while it might be perfunctory and we might want to do it, we probably
Should not.
hold for a second reading.
Good point, thank you, Craig.
Good question.
Okay,
Big words tonight.
now we're down to Ann's favorite place. Is there a second? Great, okay. Everybody, thank you for coming. Okay,
I think you were at.
can we have a vote? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carried unanimously.
They're around like their planning period.
You know, I thought the same thing. I didn't want to say anything right now.
But I don't either, and I don't want to, like, are we able to, like, are we going to be behind closed doors talking about these? Because these were my big questions. I mean, why? Kids look up information on their iPhone or a computer. Do we need?
We have to, in the elementary
Can't
school.
the
Because there's no
teacher?
media.
But
No,
can a
but-
teacher not?
No, they have to catalog all the stuff.
Thank you for coming to our March regular meeting.
Some familiar faces, certainly our union leadership and the various union staff, teachers, community members.
Okay, is there any public comment? Okay, consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve it? Is there a second? Okay. Is there any discussion or any questions about it? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Reading and review of correspondence received?
No.
I don't have any either. Okay, superintendent's report.
Great. Hand it off to Clark Lane in a moment for their presentation, but it is Board Member Appreciation Month, and our students wanted to recognize the hard work that you do, and you'll see a packet of note cards depicting our students' artwork from across the district. So, you know that we appreciate all the time you put in.
They're beautiful.
Yeah, they're pretty, really impressive. We have a presentation tonight from Clark Lane. They're going to share with us two different updates, one on their work in math this year, as well as an update on their Prospering Electives program. We heard from them about a year and a half ago on their pilot of their electives program, and we are here to hear them present on both math and electives. I'll hand it off to Principal Jim Sachs and Assistant Principal Tracy Moore.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi.
Thank you for inviting us. We're very excited to share two presentations tonight. One is regarding math, the opportunity to study on math, and the issue that we had earlier in the fall when Mr. Powers reported out our math. So we're really happy with those. The second presentation involves our electives coming off of our pilot year, and both are efforts that we made to bring more opportunities to students and create more success in school and in our classroom. So we're going to start with our math presentation, and we looked at the cohorts following the SBA results. We all saw those in October. We were not really happy with those results. We were actually below state average for 17th grade. So we really knew that we had 12 our students to do a lot of work, and so we decided to take a very collaborative teamwork approach. We enrolled with the help of our PLC and our math coach and curriculum leader and Tracy, of course, and we really dug into the data. We looked at the cohorts in great detail. The site, the SBA site, gives us the ability to look at individual kids, groups of kids, over time, in the present. It allows us to look at claims, which are different areas of mathematics, and it gives us a ton of information. The next thing we did was sort of look around at what other people in other districts are doing. So one thing I did was talk to Mr. Vistori, and he had great results from using the interim assessments. So the interim assessments are formative, and Mrs. Wall will tell you a little bit more about them in a few minutes. So we immediately came up with a plan for teachers to use those interim assessments. So we were able to do at that point interim assessments, performance tests that teachers created that oftentimes were reduced items for previous years. Something called the MAP, which is something we use basically three times a year. They basically seasonally we measure all the students in school, both LA and math, and that was a really great data point for us.
And math is used grades 3 through 11.
As a universal screen.
Okay.
Well, K to 2 is a different type of maps product, the compendium, but as you're answering, Tom, 3 through 11 is the true maps.
So in the past, we used math only once at the beginning of the year, and then we used it again throughout the year for students. But what we did was, last year we decided, and we had support from Thomas Beck, to extend that license and have it 2 times a year. This is a great extra set of data for students who use it for a lot of things. we took a really great hands-on approach. Our math teachers were phenomenal. We dug right into the data. They weren't offended by the field results, but they took it on as a big challenge. And so they looked at the students, they looked at data points, they dug right in, and they identified weakness areas. And we worked with them to come up with some solutions. So TLC was a great vehicle on Thursday. All our teachers were in the various disciplines and facing that way. We worked with the TLC along with Hope Joyner, and we analyzed results, and people shared them out, and talked about weaknesses. And then that's when Heather introduced the interim assessment that we talked about. And that really helps to understand and start to talk about it.
Was this just the math teachers or all teachers?
Well, we concentrated on the math TLC for the investment, but they were also taking them for LA.
No, I mean, were all teachers versed in math aspects that needed?
Yeah, so we shared all the information in October with the faculty and updated them around January because then the math started program and everything. So the faculty was aware of what was happening and our concerns, and the math teachers were phenomenal about it, really open about it, talking about it.
But I mean, then the English teachers and the social studies teachers and all those other teachers can incorporate, and science teachers especially can incorporate those math aspects.
Science mostly did. We didn't have, we didn't invite any other PLCs, because that's probably, we didn't want to do so much so fast that it overwhelm people, but I understand.
Well, I think the more reinforcement they get in every discipline really helps. And if they're seeing it over and over again in different ways.
We definitely can't do science, because science is really, in labs and on a lot of performance tests, we do science, we do a lot of it.
So the other disciplines were not first.
They understood what we were doing, but they weren't specifically around it.
So Heather Joyner really led the math teachers in particular to look at the smarter balance research. So when those first came out, they weren't as useful as they are now. We've seen last year and this year, many more income assessments were added. The quality of them, question banks and all of that has all been enhanced. So teachers worked over several PLCs to really go into that website, look at the questions, look at how it's structured, and most importantly, look at the information that they can garner from it. So these smarter balance results that we get in the summer or fall are broad. This lets us get down to individual kids and individual items. So the information that they get back is really much more useful. And they saw that firsthand and they kind of walked through income assessment blocks together, decided which ones they were going to do with all of their students. We kind of agreed collectively that every student will have 3 experiences with math. ELA was doing their own thing, but 3 experiences with math and an income assessment before the test date at this point. Most have done at least 2. I think we have a couple more before it's over.
If these teachers have done the second one already, have you tracked to see whether they have improved?
So the way that they're structured is they focus on each of the different standards within the Common Core. So they've been doing different topics. They wouldn't be able to necessarily track growth. So one might be on numbers and operations, and another one
think it's good that, like, for instance, you said geometry, so that the math teacher would concentrate just on geometry. So they could get each area of the test, and they can concentrate on that area and really get proficient at it. Without having their mind have to go all over the place with different.
So from the first to the second, really comfortable now with all the features of the test. We can really extrapolate back and say, you had some percentage of students who had to learn that test that first day of equipment. And now they're really familiar with these kinds of stuff. So they just click around and know how to enter data, they know what the various buttons represent, so it's comfort level.
So everything's on the computer?
Yeah.
Are they allowed to use paper to?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's something you kind of have to train kids, because for kids, when they sit down and take a computer-based math test, tend to think they have to do it in their head.
Yeah,
with
they
their head.
do
So you have to really train them to use some of the kids use whiteboards and markers.
That's a new concept in
It is,
itself.
it's a different
You know?
speaking.
So the big thing when you come in, you watch the table, they have this down, they understand how sort of modern assessment works. So you're watching them with a paper, and then they'll pull up a calculator, or they'll put a function, and it's really cool.
So they're working on a Word document, not a spreadsheet, when they do a math test?
Well, it's an interactive program, so, Greg, there are some tools built in to the computer. So if the child needs a protractor or a compass, then that tool comes up virtually on the screen to measure the object. And in some parts where you can use the calculator because we want to see if the students can understand the formula thinking, that'll come up. And other times the calculator option doesn't come up because we want to see if the students can compute the answer on their own. And they might have to read a word problem, and then the answer box is sort of it's a split screen. So it's that type of practice on the format I do think matters, kind of like if we took the SAT structure.
They can't just enter the formula for the problem, and then the answer will pop up with the program itself.
So it's not exact that way.
And they think this is a good way to take a test? Yeah.
Well, that's a whole other debatable topic, Jody. So
They truly are much more comfortable with it than we would be. So when we started even looking at these items and stuff, little things like entering fractions, how you enter a fraction matters, because of,
Right.
they give you little boxes, you can't use a flash on, all that stuff. Those are all the things that the more experiences they have, even though that's part of the practice that they got that before they took the lecture, they've had one experience with that stuff. So this is much more.
And this is what our younger students are learning as they go
And they're
along.
so I was actually.
That's probably why they're doing so well, because they've been trained.
Right, and I covered Chris's building one day when kindergarten was doing a math test, all of the computer-based tests, and they were doing it just fine. They were saying they would be able to, they were not testing.
I'm glad I'm not in school anymore.
So
Well-
we rarely hear students talk about the anxiety of the format of the
Right.
test.
Right.
We actually have more concerns about bubbles.
Sure.
Really?
You lay any bubble in, if you like bubbling,
Okay.
going from the booklet to the bubble and getting off track. So these are some ways.
Yeah, so a couple other points that the income assessment piece, so the data is available at the individual and item level, so that the report is much nicer than the broad report that we get, where it identifies specifically your class of kids, what were like the 5 questions on that test, the 10 to 15 on each test, that they answered well, but that's 5, and then the 5 that they struggled with as a class. And you can click on each kid, what they answered, so you can see what the common mistakes might have been, but you can click on and see what the question is right there in front of you, so you don't have to go back and forth between different students. So that information then is followed up in the classroom, so I do a 7th grade do a whole activity with the 5 most easy questions that we use. So,
When do they determine to go on? I mean, you're not giving them math again to see if they still want to.
so you can, with the interim, with that, you can actually give them the same assessment block. So say you gave the expressions and equations and the kids didn't do so well, you could give it to them again after you do something in the class, or you could open it up in your classroom and go through whichever items you wanted to as a whole class, and then, create your own, or.
So are they doing that? so we know when mastery is achieved?
Yeah, so the mastery is measured maybe not through that input, but it's part of the unit. So they might have just finished the